Today I'm heading up to number 100 Lambeth Road. This is the same road that goes all the way to Lambeth Bridge. So if you find that on the map, it's easy to find this. It's a short walk. And going up to see where Captain Bligh of Mutiny and the Bounty fame lived. See that blue door there? That is, or was, his house. It's now a bed and breakfast. You'll see a historical marker plaque on the side of the wall there. This is where he lived until he died. Closer look at the sign there. Now, if you're unfamiliar with his story, there's been quite a few movies. I think like 4 movies made on it, and numerous books written on it. And they mostly circle around the story of the mutiny on the Bounty. He was the commanding officer of HMS Bounty. I think his actual rank at the time was lieutenant or lieutenant. I'm not sure which it was, but anyway, he had stopped in Tahiti to trade with the local folks there for breadfruit plants. And his mission was to get a bunch and take the breadfruit plants over to Jamaica and try to get them going there, since the climate was similar and they should grow just fine. So they stopped there in Tahiti, and that seems to be where things got a little crazy. So they spent about 5 months in Tahiti, and then when it was time to go, a lot of them had already formed relationships with the local girls on the island and didn't want to leave. And so when they were forced to leave, they weren't too happy about life back on the ship after so long in paradise. And it wasn't long into that journey that the mutiny took place. And they put Captain Bligh off and I think 18 others in a small rowboat out in the middle of the ocean. And with only 5 days worth of food, the amazing thing was he was able to get those, all but one who was killed by natives when they did stop on a nearby island they came across. He got them all back to safety, including himself, nearly 4,000 miles in a rowboat, which is unbelievable skilled sailing. And that's the part that really just fascinates me to no end. But anyway, here we are. That is on the left, where the Archbishop of Canterbury lives, and it's like a reddish brick. Now on the right, this used to be St. Mary's Church. It's now the Garden Museum, and they do exhibition on garden type stuff, and that's all neat and everything, but that's not why I'm here today. Captain Bligh is actually buried in this, what used to be the churchyard, and this was his parish church when he was alive. And to get to where he's buried, there's some graves out front here, but he's not among those. He's actually to the right, and you have to go in and out to this section here. See, this is the largest one there in white. Some people say that's a breadfruit plant on the top, but I've read somewhere else that it's also, not also, but that it is an eternal flame rather than a breadfruit plant. That's where he's buried. Got a nice tropical setting around his grave now after the museum took over, but he's quite a controversial figure even today. You'll see folks that claim he was railroaded and his reputation is not deserved, and you'll see other folks that claim that he was a tyrant and it was well justified, the mutiny. After the mutiny took place, when they put him off in a boat, Fletcher Christian, the guy, I guess the ringleader of the mutineers, he took off and he was looking for a hiding spot where they wouldn't find him. And he came across Pitcairn Island, and that's where they ended up, or at least A few of them did anyway. Some decided to go back to Tahiti, and they were captured. And the ones on Pitcairn Island, the last one lived until 1808 on that island. All of them but one of the Europeans, men, were killed by the Tahitians that they kind of kidnapped and forced to go to Pitcairn Island with them, with the intention of being slaves to them. That didn't work out too well. And there were a number of Tahitian women that they took with them as well. And many of the descendants of those mutineers that were on Pitcairn Island still live there today, which is quite amazing. This happened in 1789, and quite an amazing story if you haven't read about that. So one other thing you might want to see besides where he lived and where he's buried is the ship's chronometer, which was the looks like a pocket watch in today's terms, but at the time most clocks were based on having a pendulum. So the design to have a watch that was not using a pendulum was quite new and very expensive at the time. The ship's chronometer was actually issued to him, and he had to sign for it. And one of the first things he did when he got back to Timor, where he arrived in the Dutch Indies after sailing for 47 days and nearly 4,000 miles, was to write about the loss of that ship's chronometer. Later on, the mutineers had it, and it was kept on Pitcairn Island until the last guy that was there of the mutineers, Adams, he came across an American whaling ship that stopped and came to shore and spoke with him. He ended up trading that for something that the captain of the whaling ship, I think his last name was Folger, had, and that watch has changed hands many times over the years, but it has now made its way back to London. So if you go out to the Greenwich observatory, you can get a good look at the K2, which was the ship's chronometer on the HMS Bounty. And we're gonna go see all this stuff. Might as well do it while you're in London and get it all done, because this is really interesting stuff. And it's all right in this one little area here, with the exception of the K2. That's out in Greenwich. We're just a short ride down the river if you get on one of the river taxis. But well worth seeing. And, just fascinating that stuff survives today. One last thing I'll say before I close this video: most of the accounts of Captain Bligh being such a tyrant are from the writings of one of the mutineers that was captured in Tahiti and brought back. So take that for what it's worth. And that's all I've got for this video.